please tell us who you are.
My name's Sarah Collins and I'm a trade union activist. I work for the STUC, but I'm here in a personal capacity. I'm one of the founding members of the Radical Independence campaign.
And how did you get to be a founding member?
Yeah, good question. I was never somebody who particularly was interested in independence. I was politically active during my student years in the Stop the War campaign. I became involved in kind of anti-austerity politics, became a trade union activist. I was a branch secretary for Unionist. When the independence referendum was announced, there was a group of us who felt like the conversation wasn't really taking into account a lot of our views about social justice, about economic ownership and control, about democracy really. It seemed to be kind of presented that independence would be the status quo again, it would just be a continuation of what we'd had before, and that was a problem for us. So we had our initial conference here in the Radisson 7 years ago. It really was just a group of us in our early 20s primarily who started the campaign, had the conference as a launch just to see what happened. 700 people turned up that day, and it was clear that there was a lot of momentum, a lot of groundswell of people wanting something different from independence, wanting to say that actually this is about a change, it is about taking a risk, it is about a rupture with the politics that have gone before, and that we can't just have the same old status quo pro-business model for independence. We have to look at the fundamental questions over democracy, over our economy.
So how would you like things, you'd like to start off the new country as, well, it wouldn't be a new, it's difficult to phrase that as a new country, but the new position of Scotland in its history from social justice rather than from an economic standpoint. Would that be a reasonable thing to say?
Or just kind of flip the narrative about the economy, I suppose, about who owns and controls the economy and whose interests is it run at the moment, and flip it to it should be about workers, it should be about people who are more vulnerable in society that are part of the decision-making processes, rather than it being for profit. Ultimately it's about people before profit, and a kind of more radical anti-capitalist stance that Radical Independence is quite clear on that vision.
One of my bugbears is that we measure society with numbers. Numbers are tricksy things.
Yeah.
You know, just because you've got a pile of money in the bank doesn't make you the nicest person in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the value that we place on the individual is how, that's a very personal thing I was just saying to you, I suppose. But when you go out into the street and you see someone who's homeless, who hasn't got enough money, all these kind of things, it hits me in the heart.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, so I'm a trade unionist first and foremost, so I believe in workers' democracy and industrial power, industrial muscle that workers can use. And I think that it is clear that we put a lot of value on statistics and how much people get paid at the top of society, and not the actual value that they're doing in their jobs. If you look at the recent equal pay strike in Glasgow, the equal pay strike and campaign came about because 14,000 people felt that they were being undervalued for the work that they were doing. The work that they were doing, or still are doing, is primarily in care, cooking, cleaning, basically the actual fundamentals of what we need in our society, but there was no value placed, or little value placed on those jobs, which is why they were so underpaid. The statistics that the Scottish Government, or all governments use with GDP or about employment rates, etc., don't tell the whole story at all. Scotland's got the highest employment rate it's ever had, certainly since the 1970s at the moment, but that doesn't tell the story that actually terms and conditions have got worse, that pay has got worse, that income inequality has risen in the country. It might look like a success story that you've not got lines and lines of people, you know, lining up outside the job centre, but those people are on 0 hours contracts, they're on unstable contracts, they're feeling insecure, they have to work 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. Exactly, so the numbers don't tell the whole story at all. It has to be more about what our actual worth is and value is as a society and as a workforce as well.
Yeah, and how we all feel about each other, isn't it? And how it feels to walk down the street and feel you're not threatened or you're not frightened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole kind of narrative of Scotland's this safe and equal place isn't necessarily true for an awful lot of people. It's
well,
not
especially
a welcoming place.
Look at the land ownership here; it's quite out of kilter, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how many? It's a handful of people own most of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's the same old kind of ruling class that have always been there, the aristocracy that have been around, and not just Scotland.
Of course, you know, obviously they've tried the communist system; it didn't quite work. but we do need to have some system that evens things out a wee bit, doesn't it, and values people.
But yeah,
I lived in Switzerland for a long time, many years, and I don't know. You see, what always struck me about that society is that most people have got a bit of money in their pocket, so they can go and have a cup of coffee without worrying. They can buy their Wayne's, a bar of chocolate without worrying. They can, I can't quite. In Switzerland, they are very, very proud of a 3-pillar social services system, and indeed, when I was staying there, I was part of a family which came from a particular village, and if I had nothing, no food, no water, no shelter, if I crawled up the steps of the town hall there, they would have had to have dealt with me and given me the basics. It would be nice here, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean it would, and it would be nice if that was actually publicly funded and resourced, but I don't think it's true that we have this completely divided society. It's divided between the haves and the have-nots, but there is still a sense of community and collectivism, particularly with people that are in lower paid jobs, that are classed as the unskilled in society when they're not unskilled at all. But that kind of collectivism and community is there. It's there through trade unions, it's there through community groups, it's there through campaigns like this where people actually do look out for each other. The poorest in our society give the most proportionately to charity. So it's not like we come from this selfish society that people are innately or naturally selfish. It's just that our public resources and services haven't been funded enough. In fact, they've been stripped of their funds and completely defunded, and that was an ideological decision from the government that the welfare state would be rolled back, would be privatised, would be outsourced, etc. And that's, I mean, if you do any of the polls, that's what people still want. They still want a well-funded education system, social security system, NHS, etc. The media and the government have caused division by blaming immigration, by blaming people that are scroungers, skivers, etc., when obviously if you look at our cabinet of government, they are the biggest scroungers and skivers.
You give money in a social benefit like though it's the universal credit now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that money goes straight back into the community around it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nonsense to say it costs anything. It doesn't cost a penny.
Exactly.
It just, if you help people to have a standard of living. Yeah.
And I mean, if the government really wants to tackle poverty instead of all the hand-wringing and bemoaning poverty, you put wages in people's pockets and you make sure that your employers that you're holding up as these great employers in the country are paying at very, very least the living wage. It's scandalous that they're allowed to pay anything other than a wage that people can actually live on. But that's not going to come from the government because it's not actually in their interest. So it can only come from people using their kind of industrial strength, using their strength and collectivism as workers to force the employer, to force these concessions from the employer to give them proper wages that actually account for what they're doing, account for the time that they're spending away from their friends and family to build up our society to be this productive economy that the government wants it to be.